Number 8. The Monuments of Petra. When explorers first stumbled across a large monument carved directly into towering rock cliffs in Jordan, they were stunned at their incredible discovery. At first, experts thought they might have found a hidden cemetery where the ancient people of Petra had buried their dead for centuries. But as they inspected the well-developed structures, they realized they had found something even more remarkable. We can find hints of Near Eastern and Hellenistic architectural influences in the dramatic appearance of the towering Corinthian columns and the obelisks that seem to stretch up to the sky. Even though the tombs are stunning to look at, that didn't make it any easier for experts to figure out when they carved them. Of the 3,000 monuments, there are no inscriptions, and they found no ceramics that would have helped archaeologists pinpoint their date of origin. Not all the structures were tombs, though. They used some of the smaller monuments for living quarters or dining rooms. There was even a monastery and large theater, all carved into the stone cliffs. Even though archaeologists have been working at the site since Petra was first discovered in 1812 by a Swiss explorer, there are still secrets waiting to be unearthed. In 2016, they found a new monumental structure after experts used satellite imagery to scan the ancient city. They first spotted a staircase and a massive 184 by 161-foot platform lined with columns. This time, they also found pottery nearby that suggested the structure could be over 2,000 years old, which also dates to around the same time when Petra originated. With so many other shrines and platforms in the surrounding valleys and canyons, this might not seem like such a unique discovery. But after comparing it to the monuments already there, experts realized there were no others on the same scale as this new one. They hope to find more hidden structures using modern technology to survey the landscape in the coming years to uncover other lost monuments. Number 7. Lost Egyptian City in California. The last place you might expect to see an Egyptian sphinx is in California. So, when archaeologists unearthed a 300-pound sphinx at the Guadalupe Nipomo dunes, they inadvertently uncovered a piece of Hollywood history. The first clue that this was no ordinary sphinx came the moment they unearthed it and proved to be made from plaster and not bedrock, like the Great Sphinx of Giza is. The statue's location was another hint of its origins. They found it in the same desert where they filmed Hollywood director Cecil B. DeMille's The Ten Commandments. DeMille commissioned a designer to construct an ancient Egyptian palace for his film, including over 20 sphinxes. After filming wrapped, he thought it was too expensive to dismantle the set. Not wanting other rival film studios to take the expensive props and use them for themselves, DeMille ordered workers to bury the set at a secret location. The set would stay there covered until director Peter Brosnan set out to find the lost city. It would take over 5 years and a $10,000 grant to fund his adventure, but the director eventually found the first sphinx in Guadalupe, California in 1990. For the next 30 years, Brosnan fought to unearth the city, where he eventually found many artifacts from DeMille's movies. Brosnan also made a documentary about his journey locating DeMille's sphinxes. The Ten Commandments was the largest set in movie history, and the objects remained intact after all that time, making them treasures that they would have lost if not for the dedication of one director and his quest to save the iconic city. Number 6. Cerro BALLENA. Just north of the town of Caldera in Chile, researchers made the stunning discovery of 10 different marine animals in 2010. The strange thing? They were in the middle of the Atacama Desert, surrounded by sand as far as the eye can see. This rare find made the site an important one because it's one of the first examples of so many marine animals being stranded in fossil records. Known as Cerro BALLENA or Whale Hill, the site has one of the most concentrated deposits of fossilized whales and other extinct marine animals in the world. Some of the important species found there are aquatic sloths, 4 species of extinct whales, and the skeletons of over 10 large baleen whales. As experts excavated to find the answer, they studied algae in the water that underwent a massive blossom, which means they grew out of control and produced enough toxins that they killed off animals. For those that think something as large as algae in the water couldn't take down a massive animal like a mammoth, think again. The discovery of animal bones in 4 different layers of the Earth showed that the toxic algae problem happened repeatedly, taking some of the Earth's rarest animals with it. Experts think the tragedy first started 5 to 11 million years ago in the late Miocene period, millions of years before humans arrived in South America when the ill-fated animals either ate contaminated prey or inhaled harmful poisons. They would have died relatively quickly before their bodies were washed into a tidal flat where the sand buried them for about 10,000 to 16,000 years. Don't let the ancient tragedy fool you, though. Even modern-day whales still fall victim to toxic algae, with many being stranded every year. They moved some fossils that were uncovered to museums, but as experts continue their studies, they hope to continue to excavate around Cerro BALLENA, where they estimate hundreds of fossil marine mammal skeletons will sit hidden under centuries of sand. What do you think caused so many animals to die at Whale Hill? Let us know in the comments, and if you're liking this video, be sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe buttons if you haven't already. Number 5. Valley of the Whales. Mummies and ancient artifacts aren't the only things found in Egypt. In 1989, they discovered 40-million-year-old fossilized whale skeletons perfectly preserved in the Libyan desert. They've unearthed 41 fossils since then in the Valley of the Whales, including one known as the Basilosaurus that stretched over 60 feet long and weighed 60 tons. The area is littered with bones, from vertebrae to skulls and leg bones of the ancient animals. The Basilosaurus is one of the more extraordinary finds at the site. It was an aquatic creature at first, but it had to develop into an amphibious being, growing legs to survive the surrounding changes. At the time the Basilosaurus roamed, the Tethys Sea covered the entire region. As time went on, the sea receded and trapped a lot of the animals, including turtles, whales, and sharks, on land. Even though that meant many of these animals didn't survive, they left behind a wealth of bones that archaeologists can study to figure out how the Earth changed, how animals adapted, and how the unlucky ones weren't able to survive the harsh conditions. The site is such an important one that UNESCO, the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, classified it as a World Nature Reserve to protect what they consider the oldest animal kingdom on Earth. With the number of fossils still hiding below the sand estimated at over 1,000, researchers still hope for discoveries that are even more remarkable. Number 4. Uluru. The giant stone monolith of Uluru is as iconic as the koala bear in Australia, but this towering rock is more than just a tourist attraction. It has spiritual significance to Australia's Indigenous people, with a past steeped in mystery and intrigue. Even though it became known as the Ayers Rock after being given the title to honor Henry Ayers, who once was the Chief Secretary of South Australia, Uluru has been around for hundreds of thousands of years. It began its life in the ocean over 600 million years ago and gradually hardened. It's impossible not to stand in awe of the massive rock, which stands 1,141 feet above sea level at its highest point. But there's more than meets the eye. The vast majority, almost 1.5 miles, is underground, with a monolith that is taller than the Eiffel Tower. They consider the area a sacred site to native Aborigines, including the Anangu tribe, who are the traditional landowners. As one of the oldest living cultures in the world, the Anangu have been in the area for over 30,000 years, and they continue to preserve their traditions and celebrate local animals like the har wallaby and python as important ancestral beings. They also perform rituals and ceremonies and continue to share etchings on the red rocks in the region created centuries ago by their ancestors. Before Europeans came to settle Australia, there were over 700 indigenous languages. Sadly, even though most of those are now extinct, the Anangu continue to keep some of those lost dialects alive. Bringing tourists to the remote region, it's a way to share this important history and show people the lives of Australia's first people. Number 3. Mysterious Tunisian Lake. It's not every day that a lake appears out of thin air, but that's exactly what happened in the middle of the Tunisian desert in 2014. And if you can believe it, there's more to this story than meets the eye. A local man was traveling through the region when he saw something strange in the distance. Instead of endless miles of stark desert, he saw an almost 2.5-acre turquoise blue lake 15.5 miles from the city of Gafsa. The man had been driving for hours, and at first he thought he was hallucinating. When he got a closer look, he realized the lake was real and the water was crystal clear. After local shepherds confirmed the existence of the 60 feet deep lake, geologists went on a whirlwind journey as they tried to figure out how such a thing could happen in the middle of the desert. Near Gafsa, the lake became a hotbed of activity, with locals and tourists alike wanting to see this modern marvel. But before the area became overrun, experts looked to the local mining industry as a source of the lake. Some thought it was rainwater that had collected in a canyon. Others think there was a rupture in the water table that allowed water to flow to the surface. With large deposits of phosphate from mining that leave behind radioactive residue and contaminate the water, visitors couldn't resist, forcing experts to warn them that swimming in the lake wasn't the best idea. Luckily, it didn't take long for the clear water to change to a murky green because of algae, eventually chasing away visitors and giving experts time to figure out that the origin of Lac de Gafsa wasn't so strange after all. Their theory is that a minor earthquake deep underground ruptured the rocks and forced water to the surface. Even with the scientific explanation, the appearance of a lake in the middle of a desert is still a startling sight. Number 2. Millions of mummified dogs. Archaeologists have been digging for decades south of Cairo to unearth the hidden treasures left behind by ancient Egyptians. But as newly discovered burial sites, they unearthed a shocking cache that was filled with nearly 8 million animals, mostly mummified dogs. They found them in the catacombs at a site called Saqqara, which was dedicated to the god Anubis, portrayed with the head of a jackal and celebrated as the god of the dead. In the same way that Egyptians mummified and buried their dead so they could live in the afterlife, they also preserved their dogs so they could live, provide food, and represent offerings to various Egyptian gods. These offerings were a way for religious Egyptians to ask Anubis for help. By giving their dog as an offering, they were showing their devotion to the god. The location of the mass grave wasn't necessarily a surprise, though. Archaeologists have talked about maps of dog catacombs since the late 1800s, but that doesn't mean experts weren't stunned and excited by their discovery. Even though it might seem like a strange and gruesome practice, they considered it a deeply important religious act where the person burying their dog believed it would go on to a higher plane where Anubis would wait to welcome them into his eternal pack. They wrapped most of the dog mummies found in bandages, and some had resin applied to preserve them. Sadly though, with so many mummies stacked in one place, a lot of them were in terrible shape when they found them. Experts could date the cave where they found them to be between roughly 750 BC to 30 BC, and with more research, they will learn more about this ritual and how the ancient Egyptians interacted with and honored the animals they lived with. Number 1. Mount Nemrut, Turkey. One look at the eerie ruins at Mount Nemrut in Turkey and you might get an unsettling feeling. But could that be from the opposing 164-foot-high burial mound and its giant stone statues, or the tomb that lies beneath them? One of Turkey's most fascinating archaeological sites, Mount Nemrut has become well known for the terraces that rim the massive funeral mound there. They're a haunting tribute to King Antiochus I, who ruled the kingdom of Commagene in Syria from about 70 to 38 BC. Like other ancient sculptures around the world, those at Mount Nemrut have fallen into the sand below, making them that much more breathtaking when you see them in real life. Once lined up to celebrate the glory of their king and the gods the nation worshipped, the gigantic statues now lay scattered around the foot of the mountain. Antiochus I took control of the kingdom after his father died in 64 BC, but his reign was a tumultuous one, with the Romans launching military campaigns against the kingdom until they eventually absorbed it into their territory in 70 AD. So, did the Romans destroy the statues to exert their power, or were the monoliths toppled by weather and time? No one knows for sure how the damage occurred, but even in pieces, the statues are still stunning to see. Most of those found on the summit's east terrace have lost their heads, which now sit nearby on the ground beside the bodies. Along with eagles and lions, there are also statues representing various gods, including Zeus, Heracles, and Apollo. Other statues show Antiochus I, with various reliefs showing both Persian and Greek ancestors, including one where he is being deified and transforming into a star. Despite the damage at Mount Nemrut, Antiochus I held a position of importance and his spirit lives on today at this impressive site. Thanks for watching. Which one of these discoveries fascinated you the most? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos like these. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time for another video right here on American Eye.